Another day, another Diddy allegation. Just when we thought that the SA allegations against him were the worst thing, the streets are saying that there is a possibility that the feds might add a murder charge for him allegedly unaliving Tupac back in 1996. Now, while Diddy didn't exactly pull the trigger himself, there have been reports that he allegedly put a $1 million bounty on Tupac's head, which ultimately led to him being taken down. Further investigation into the case was declared cold until last year when a man named Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was arrested for the murder, and he started singing like a canary, snitching hard on Diddy. And given everything that has happened to Diddy since then, it looks like Tupac's family believes that Diddy was allegedly the brains behind the murder because they just hired a private investigator to look into the case. The streets are now saying that the investigator allegedly handed over some evidence to the feds to implicate Diddy. Now, you know you need to be seated for this because this looks like the beginning of Diddy's end. Okay, so when people talk about Diddy possibly being charged with murder, we thought it was going to be Kim Porter's murder that he'd be charged for. Because I know that y'all have heard those rumors of how Diddy allegedly took him out as well. But it looks like it's Tupac's murder that he might be going down for because a massive plot twist has just been exposed. Now, before we get into Tupac's family hiring an investigator, I need to give you all some context about why they even believe that Diddy could do something like that. I mean, Diddy has been accused of SA and putting paws on people, but it's a long jump from beating up his employees to ordering a hit on one of the greatest rappers of all time, in some people's opinions. Ever since Tupac was killed in that drive-by on September 7th, 1996, conspiracy theories have been flying left and right about who did it. And while a lot of them sound wild, there are some that might actually hold a little weight. One of the biggest theories, that Diddy had a hand in setting up Tupac's murder. Now, Diddy's name has popped up in connection with Pac's death for years, but nobody ever really took it seriously until recently. Things got real when Diddy's former bodyguard, Keefe D, was arrested in connection for Pac's murder. Before all that, Keefe had been out here giving interviews, spilling all kinds of tea about what went down that night. According to Keefe, the that Tupac was payback for an earlier fight between the Crips, Diddy's people, and the Bloods, Pac's people. Keefe even claimed that he was in the back seat of the white Cadillac shots were fired, but he wasn't the one pulling the trigger. So how does all this tie back to Diddy? Keefe D straight up claimed that Diddy was the mastermind behind Tupac's death. In a Vlad TV interview, he revealed that Diddy allegedly offered him $1 million to take out both Tupac and Suge Knight. But here's the kicker. Keefe says he never saw that money. Instead, Diddy gave the cash to Eric Von Zip, one of his associates, and Zip allegedly ran off with it, leaving Keefe empty-handed.
Well, the story that has circulated was that after Tupac got Puffy allegedly gave the money
I heard
to Zip.
Yes.
And Zip was supposed to give the money to Keefe and them.
Yes.
But he never gave the money to him.
But thank God he never gave him the money, right? Think about it. If he gave the money, Puffy would be in prison now, money for hire. So thank God. It's just a true story. I'm not saying yes or no, but if he would have gave them the money, it'd have been for hire and Puffy would be locked up.
Yeah, I said he's a dirty mother.
Yeah, he even said that, like, in retrospect, that was probably the best thing that could have ever happened to Puffy. By Zip stealing the money, now Puffy isn't connected to that. Or else it would have been, like, for hire or something, you know what I'm saying?
The FBI said Zip.
So the FBI told you the
he
same
was
thing.
a dirty mother.
So the FBI told you that Zip kept that money as well.
They said Zip's a dirty. Everybody cross you.
Greg Kading, one of the original detectives on the Tupac case, said that police had always suspected that Keefe and Diddy were involved. In some earlier interviews with police, Keefe basically admitted to being part of Tupac's and even claimed Diddy hired him to take out both Tupac and Suge. So if the cops had this info from the jump, why didn't they act on it? Some folks think the investigators were trying to make sure all of their intel checked out and that things really went down the way Keefe described. Tupac isn't the only one people believe Diddy allegedly put a hit out on. The streets have been buzzing for years with talk that Diddy has allegedly taken out anyone who's threatened his success or had too much dirt on him. The rumor mill even suggests that Diddy played a role in Biggie's death too. Back in 2006, Biggie's mom, Valetta Wallace, pushed the LAPD to reopen the case, and that's when Greg Kading and his team started digging. What they found wasn't just about Biggie. It linked back to Tupac too. Kading discovered that both deaths were connected, and while investigating Biggie's case, he stumbled on even more information tying everything together. So we've already talked about how Diddy allegedly offered Keefe D $1 million to take out Tupac. But here's where things get even messier. According to Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal, Diddy allegedly wanted Biggie gone too because he couldn't handle the idea of Biggie outshining him and becoming even bigger than he was.
Puff is in the situation he's in right now because he had what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that self-fulfilling prophecy was to be the greatest on his label, which he was. And which he said, no one can be bigger than me on Bad Boy label. When he said, and for the sake of the internet, I'm not going to use profanity. I don't give a F if Pac gotta die, Big gotta die, or should not go to jail. When he said that, that was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Say it in thy mouth, believe it in thy heart, and it shall happen.
Interestingly, Tupac's family has also believed from the start that Diddy had something to do with Tupac's death. In an interview, Tupac's brother, Mo Preem, claimed that at the time Tupac died, Diddy hurriedly called him to say he was not involved in his brother's death. This was just after the LA Times put out an article implicating Diddy in Pac's death. I don't know about you, but it's kind of giving damage control.
The boy Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me. He was like, "I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brother's. You know, I know who you are, but we never met, and I just want to call you man to man, let you know that I ain't have nothing to do with your brother's death." Now, why was he calling me, reaching out to me? Because LA Times had just dropped. It was in the early 2000s. LA Times had just dropped an article in the newspaper implicating him as well. I told him I appreciate the call, but the truth is yet to come out, so we gonna see.
Diddy has been fighting the accusations for a long time, and in an interview, he accused the media of trying to set him up, saying the story is a lie. The hip-hop mogul said in a statement following a report from the Los Angeles Times reporting that Diddy's associates were responsible for the incident. It is beyond ridiculous and completely false. Neither the late rapper Notorious Big nor I had any knowledge of the attack before, during, or after it happened. I am shocked that the Los Angeles Times would be so irresponsible as to publish such a baseless and completely untrue story. Mopreme also talked about Keefe's arrest connecting Tupac's murder, saying he wanted to see how seriously the police were going to take the investigation, especially after Keefe D name-dropped people, including Diddy.
Absolutely. That's why I'm curious to see how they plan to deal with the case, because he, in his own admissions, mentions other people. You know, are they going to say what happened to these people? Yes, Puffy being one of them. I don't know where that's going to lead, but I do believe there were accomplices. And I don't think all of them have been looked at.
He went on to say he believed Pac wasn't acting alone and that there were accomplices, and not all of them had been looked at, which is crazy considering that Tupac's happened almost 30 years ago. Mopreme also mentioned that the Shakur family still talks about the case and how nonchalant the police have been about it. Well, it looks like the family is done talking about it alone, and they are now taking some action, trying to get justice for Tupac. It was recently confirmed that the Shakur family has hired a lawyer named Alex Spiro to investigate Tupac's and Diddy's involvement in it. It looks like Diddy being exposed for all these crimes, both in the civil lawsuits and the federal case, was enough motivation for the family to decide to speak up and try to get justice for Tupac after all this time.
So what's happening with the family and the attorney? It was confirmed that they have hired an investigator to look into any potential link between Sean Combs and Tupac Shakur back in 1996. They're in on it now. I mean, this isn't like, oh yeah, we'll just take a look. No, they're gonna take a look at it. They have a good faith belief that there may be a there, and they are going to pursue it.
Get this, according to a lawyer, the family's decision to investigate is not surprising because it has likely been in the works for a while now.
What does that say to you? What do you think is happening, and how serious is this when someone hires an investigative team? It's being handled by authorities, but this is a private entity requesting this.
Julia, I always say, landslides don't happen slowly, right? You'll be standing on the side of a mountain admiring its beauty and glamour, and then 1 second later, you're buried in mud, right? This does not shock me. This does not surprise me. I can promise you this is not the last thing that we find out about people investigating Diddy and what he's done. This is not the first. We know of an attorney now who represents hundreds of families who are suing him for, alleged, freak-offs and so what this tells me is that it's just a piling on. Pretty much people knew for decades what we're going to start finding out things that people have speculated on for decades, and they're just going to pile on, because at the end of the day, how's he going to defend himself at this point? He's got a ton of money, he's got a ton of attorneys, but even if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources, if you are sued, by 100 different people, 100 different times, by 100 different theories, at the end of the day, you as a professional defendant operating from a jail cell, you cannot overcome that. You just can't do it.
Calling Diddy a professional defendant is some nasty business, and it just goes to show that this is nowhere close to being over. And it looks like the family made the right choice to investigate, because it seems to have lit a fire under the authorities and pushed them to look harder into this case. A few days after the family announced their investigation, the authorities released some never-before-seen crime scene pictures of the Tupac case, which puts into perspective just how insane this situation is. The fact that they released this now kind of seems like they're probably going to reopen the case any time from now, and the streets are convinced that it's because the family's investigator found some damaging evidence that the initial investigators either missed or ignored, and now they're trying to cover up by actually doing the hard work now. Fans commented, "I've always believed that Puffy was involved, but not because of the Bad Boy Death Row beef, but because Pac was starting to very loudly out him on songs. People in the industry knew, but the masses didn't. Being outed at the time in the rap community would likely affect his career and reputation really badly. I'm not saying Diddy got Tupac killed, but I'm not saying he didn't get killed either. Diddy has been a snake his entire career, and all that has been hidden or lied about is coming to light. It's justice time. This is the time to be alive just for honesty and truth, politics and entertainment. Tupac and Biggie will get their justice, as well as all politically held people. Or not. This is a